915 Talk is a production of Desert Voice Media. You can visit desertvoice.media to learn more.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the Borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I'm your host, Andy Frecka. We are broadcasting from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're here at the KELP radio studio in El Paso, and today we have Mac Daddy Del Norte on the board. Mac Daddy, how you doing?
Yes, hello, Andy. I'm good. How about yourself?
Oh, you know, we're continuing on this journey of learning about our city, our community.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, everything about it, and it's super fun because we have some folks come in that no one's heard of.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we had Olympic hopeful. He's training to be in the bobsled event in the Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
He's here in El Paso.
Yes.
We talked to a UTEP professor who created an affordable prosthetic.
Yep.
Oh, man, so many different things we're learning about.
Yes, sir.
And from time to time, we have people come in who, first of all, are special just like all our guests because we are faith-based radio, and so we believe they are the unique expression of an endlessly creative God, and our guest is no exception to that, but he's a household name, Mac Daddy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everybody knows this guy.
Wow.
But first of all, he's a true son of the Borderland.
Nice.
Yeah, just like you.
Just like me.
Yeah, and he's a graduate from UTEP, just like you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And it's fun. It's fun when you see the bio of someone, and they didn't do just one thing.
Right.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some people say we can only live one life. I actually don't know if that's true. We have one birthday and one day when we go into eternity, but in between we could live so many different lives. You know what else he's done?
No, what else?
He's lived your dream.
Oh, being a rock star?
No, the other dream.
Oh. Being a business owner.
Yeah, haircutting place.
Oh.
Yeah, he used to own 3 Sport Clips franchises here in El Paso.
No way.
Yeah, that's your dream, Mac Daddy.
Definitely.
He's living your dream.
Oh, wow. Wow. I'm going to have to talk to him and see how he did it.
Yeah, exactly. One of his Sport Clips was in the top 5% out of all 1,700 U.S. and Canadian Sport Clip stores.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
That is.
He taught at EPCC.
Oh.
You spent some time there.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw him, though.
Yeah, okay. And he was at the University of Phoenix.
Okay.
And during his tenure there, he was recognized as the Instructor of the Year.
Wow.
But what is he really known for? What do you think, Mac Daddy? Do you know?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, yes. That's good. Don't bury the lead. He's known for being the El Paso County Judge.
Nice.
So it'll be interesting to find out kind of what that means, what he's passionate about, why he's doing that.
Yep.
So we have a lot to dive into. So without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to the El Paso County Judge, Ricardo Samaniego. Judge, welcome to 915 Talk.
Oh, thank you. Interesting introduction that you gave me. So, actually, more people. It took me like maybe 4 or 5 years to be recognized as a county judge. And then I got recognized in 5 minutes with Tex-Mex Motors on buying a Lambo.
I saw that. So I wasn't the one who brought it up. So I have to ask. That was so much fun. But my wife and I really enjoyed that show. It was Tex-Mex Motors where they buy these. I'm going to call it a bombed out car south of the border. They bring it up, they fix it up, and they sell it. And they're selling it. What was it? It was a Lambo?
It started at $275,000. And then my final offer was $215,000.
Yeah.
I was supposed to do just a cameo. I was supposed to just pass by and wave. There's the county judge, and next thing I know,
you bought it.
Actually, I didn't buy it, and that's what I hate to mess up. I'm probably the only fake situation in the entire series,
right?
Because people, I see their sad face when I tell them, no, I actually didn't buy it, and they look at me like, what?
Yeah.
I go, that's the only piece that I know of that was a dramatization.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
it's been just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right after that, they had the Thanksgiving parade. And so I always, as an elected official, you go in your convertible. I actually had a hot rod.
Okay.
And so I'm going by, and oh my goodness, I didn't realize the success of Tex-Mex Motors. I mean, I'm talking. I said, Judge, where's your Lambo? I became a rock star. It was just incredible.
Well, it was funny because my wife and I were watching it, and they're having this auction. They're not selling the Lambo. The show is everyone's stressed out. Are we going to sell it? Are we going to make our money? Or we're going to have to close Tex-Mex Motors? And then Judge Samaniego shows up
to save the day.
Yeah, it took me a second, and I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, it's Samaniego. But it was, what was fun about it was what did they want for it? $275,000. $275,000, and then it went down to $215,000,
exactly.
Which the show made it out like you bought it for. Yeah. But I enjoyed it because I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, Rachel, it's good. The county judge is negotiating. That's what we need from our county judge.
Need from everything that he does." And it's been a lot of fun. Like people come up to me often and they'll sort of sneak up and say, "Hey, can I take a picture with you now?" And now I have to ask, "How do you know me?" Before I figure it was county judge,
right?
But they'll say, "Yo, that Tex-Mex Motors." And then I'll say, "Well, do you know the county judge?" And then
right?
He goes, yeah, that too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
It's really, but it's been a lot of fun because people. You would think that being a county judge, and that's why I want to talk a little bit about our beautiful community.
Right.
I haven't seen, like they thought I bought it, right? But I haven't seen anyone like being jealous or how dare you, or that increase you got 3 years ago, that's how you paid for it.
Right.
People have actually been like, wow, that's so cool that you got that car. And so that's really speaks highly of our community because typically you would think it'd be no, they're happy.
I love that you brought this up because I was wondering how that went for you.
Well, the fact that I'm talking about it, Andy,
it went great.
No, it's still conflictual.
Oh, gotcha.
Is this going to work for re-election?
Yeah,
I got to think of all of those things. Everything good I've done, is that going to just throw it out the window?
Yeah, because I can vouch for you. I saw you pull up to the radio station today. Listen, folks, he was not driving the Lambo.
It's a nice truck.
Yeah, it's a nice truck. Yeah, but it's not a Lambo.
It's not a Lambo. But it's just like I said, it's a reflection of our community,
right?
As to how it could be jealous, or they were like real happy. Everyone wants a ride in it. Like, hey, could you take my grandson on a ride because he would love to be able to ride with a county judge on the Lambo. I hope we do talk a lot about how this community is so different.
Right.
It's just incredible. People don't realize the uniqueness that we have in El Paso, and I think that's one of many of them.
Of course, and the show Tex-Mex Motors. Did you watch the show at all, or just that episode? Or
well, one of the interesting things, everybody has some different idiosyncrasies. And I never watch my, anything that I do. I get interviewed.
Oh, okay.
Because I just feel like you start thinking about small things, and then it sort of
becomes unnatural.
Unnatural to be able to.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, man, this is what I tend to do.
Gotcha.
Or don't tend to do. And
but
I saw it sort of embarrassingly, sort of like sort of peeked at it kind of thing. I saw how ridiculous I was. How I was having when they told me they said, "Hey, what about negotiate this?" And I said, "Is there a script?" He goes, "Come on, you're an elected official. You guys can figure anything out." And so that was nothing prior to it. I walked right into it.
Right. Well, I think that the show itself, the premise of it's cross-border. Mm-hmm. It's bringing all these the history together, really, because a lot of these cars they find are bombed out. They might be 50 years old. They're behind someone's house. but coming together and turning it into something beautiful. And I think that's kind of a great, I don't know, allegory of really what our community is.
And the connection. I think there's a story behind that. The backstory is this relationship we have with Juarez,
Right.
and El Paso, and with cars.
Right.
If you think about it, it's been very exciting. Somebody sent me where I'm speaking Portuguese in Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Where they're showing it there in Brazil, and I'm speaking Portuguese.
Oh, that's cool.
Denmark have gone crazy over the show. I think Sweden, for some reason, certain countries, Japan has been like very into it.
Oh, wow.
So it's just
Yeah.
give every opportunity that we have to showcase our community and how people are, and just the fact that you've got the county judge behind a Lambo.
Yeah. Well,
That in itself.
yeah.
probably-
We're definitely going to, in this conversation, we have to talk about immigration and all those
Absolutely.
things.
Absolutely.
But I love this idea that Tex-Mex Motors showed the world something fun.
Yeah.
About the community. It wasn't just about the wall or tension or whatever that would be. In the intro to this program, we have this phrase. It says, "The world is looking at El Paso. What will we say to the world?" Mm-hmm. Because I've told you my story. I haven't been in El Paso that long, but it surprised me when I came. Whenever there was any kind of border tension, no one was asking El Pasoans about what was happening here on the national news.
Including ourselves.
Right.
Including the mayor and myself. Nobody picked up the phone and say, hey, what's really happening?
Yeah.
No one, when decisions were made, it
Right.
was very difficult. I remember Secretary Mayorkas came in and left. And I found out that he had come in and left without talking to us.
Wow.
And so the mayor and I were like, doesn't make sense. So I communicated to the secretary and I said, I felt like you had come into my house, grabbed a beer and left. And I never knew that you had been there.
Right.
And so and he never did that again, and he apologized. And
Right.
he said, you're right. When you come in,
Yeah.
and I've told everyone, come in the front door. Don't come in through the back, go to the border, do take pictures and then go back. I said, come
Right.
on, give the leaders, Senator Blanco, myself, the mayor, give us an opportunity, because one of the things I always, and it relates to what you just said, is that I want you to know who we are, not who
Right.
you think we are. Because we don't. What you think we are is very, very likely very different.
Right.
And so, I always say my motto is El Paso, to know us is to love us. But people don't know us. They come, they're hesitant, they're worried about coming to El Paso. And once they get to meet us, then they become like, there's an endearment that takes place, and they go, wow, this is a great community. Companies that come in, they come in sort of, you'd be maybe a good option for one of our companies. And once they get to meet us and we take them around,
Yeah.
and they talk about the labor force and how, ethical and dedicated they are, all of a sudden they fall in love with us.
Right.
So our challenge is that they have to come here. They're not going to believe what we tell them. We spend millions of dollars in advertising. This is who El Paso is. But we have found that that's why it's important to the listener to, bring back that deal from, Los Angeles that hasn't been here in a long time. And they're going to be pretty astonished at who we are. But we've
Right.
learned that they almost have to come here. Like if you say you're going to New York or Dallas, you probably know more or less what you're going to get, right?
Right.
You're not thinking different. You know exactly, good and bad, but
Yes.
you know what you're getting.
Yes.
With El Paso, it's been so isolated that people don't know what they're going to get.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, one basic fact about El Paso is when I came here, I was chatting with my brother back in Ohio. We're in El Paso now, this and that, and he thought the population of the city was around 50,000.
Yeah,
It's obviously much beyond that.
mostly horses and
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when my dad came to visit, he wanted me to take him to a cowboy ranch.
Oh.
I said, we're going to have to drive for a minute, Dad, but I can get you there, but it's going to take a minute. Yeah, so if you could get one message from us in El Paso, I'm going to ask first of all to Washington, D.C., what would that message be?
I think the same thing. I think you've made a conclusion about El Paso, and if you'd open your heart and decided to come here, and I'm talking political figures in Austin. You don't have to go to D.C. When I had just got elected in 2019, I was with the Texas, and I'll say that strongly, Texas Economic Development, okay?
Okay.
And not one of the 8 people from Texas Economic Development had ever been in El Paso.
Sure.
And
right.
think about it.
Right.
And one of the things that's changed is when you used to say, come to Texas to do business, that meant Austin, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio. It
Right.
didn't mean El Paso.
Right.
As if we weren't part of El Paso. But recently, things have changed drastically where companies that want to come to Texas come here to El Paso, and we're no longer competing with Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth and Austin. We're competing with another state. So if we don't get the company in Texas, they're not going to be in Texas. And the governor now realizes that we're huge contributors. We're huge contributors to Texas in economic development world.
Right.
And so this is very different, and this has happened in maybe the last 3 years.
Right. And this whole issue of attracting businesses, I think for some listeners, they might be, why does that matter? It matters, I think, for our taxes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we really need to work that out. I think it's a multi-year approach. It's not going to happen overnight. But is the pitch just that we're on the border?
No. I mean, for them,
Yeah.
no. I think it's the labor force is very different and very unique.
Okay.
They seem to be. They tell us they're not entitled like in some other parts of the
Oh,
country.
gotcha. Uh-huh.
They're hard workers, dedicated.
Right.
They want to get ahead in
Interesting.
life. Very ambitious about their careers. So one of the things you're going to hear from me today is that we're very unique, and we always say that, but we haven't deciphered what we mean by that.
Yeah.
Like, why are we unique?
Right.
Well, one, we have a tremendous history that is endless. The fact that we're El Paso, the pass, it was called
Right.
the Paso to the north.
Right.
And so we've always been very welcoming. People come through here. Not a lot of people stay. So that's why we're able to manage the immigration a lot better, because we weren't afraid of it. And we were able to get them dignified, get clothing for them. And they wanted to go further into the United States. They had very little interest.
Right.
And the reason they had very little interest is because we don't have large communities. For example, Venezuelans or Brazil or from Colombia. So they like to go where there's huge communities that
Right.
can welcome them.
Right.
And
Those
they don't like to
diasporas.
be by the border. They've always felt very vulnerable
Right.
being by the border. So we
Right.
became sort of like a processing. We had a center that was processing. We could process between the fluctuations of 100 to 1,200 a day. And so I'm not sure why people were concerned about that, because they were not staying here. We weren't paying one penny. They had sponsors all over the United States.
Right.
So El Paso, we were either getting the money from FEMA, federal money, but El Paso didn't use any taxpayer money to be able to address the immigration
Right.
situation.
Yeah. I think that is important for listeners to understand. Is I've heard this from several community leaders, just how much work went into negotiating that, making sure that those passing through, as you say, were not a burden on the taxpayers
Exactly.
here in the city and the county.
And I'd like to address the idea of the taxes related to economic development. Right now, 70% of everything we do for quality of life is paid by the taxpayer, and 30% by commercial.
Right.
In San Antonio, Dallas, and those places, it's completely the opposite.
Right.
70% of quality of life initiatives are paid by commercial.
Right.
A lot of the private sector really steps in because they have a broader base, so that reduces the tax amount for the taxpayer. And so some people don't realize why we make so much effort.
Yeah. Right.
as to why we're really trying to get companies to come in here, because it takes away the pressure from our taxpayer, and
Right.
they take up a lot of it.
Yeah, we very recently had Mayor Johnson in, and he gave you a shout out. And it's interesting for me, how does this work between the county and the city? You're both trying to do the same thing. It seems like. So how does that work?
Well, first of all, had good relationships with Mayor Leeser, so it's not like there's a huge contrast. But
Right.
So he comes in, but he now comes in at the level of partnership that we had created, and so having a partnership is the optics for companies coming in. They look at certain things.
Right.
Education, I think we're doing very well there. Entertainment, we're getting better. They want to live in a cosmopolitan situation. They
Right.
bring a lot of executives.
Right.
But one of the things that people don't realize is that they really look at the relationship between the mayor and the county judge and the state legislators is
Right.
really important.
Right.
They don't want to be in a situation where they have challenges and we're fighting.
Right.
And we're not getting along. They want to be able to pick up the phone and know that they're going to request something that the Mayor Johnson, perfect example today. If anybody goes to the courthouse, there's traffic all over, and we have jury duty, and
Right.
you can imagine you're going to be late to a trial. It just sets everything off. And so the city's working on the streets around the courthouse. So this will tell you the whole story of how the relationship we have. So I'm on the car. He's on the Mayor Johnson is on the speakerphone. I call our director of facilities, Mr. Sully. I put the window down. I said, Mr. Sully, I'm here with the mayor. And can you tell him a little bit about the problems that you're having? And Mr. Sully says, well, if you could close Campbell,
Yeah.
it would really help. So I'm having this conversation with the mayor and Mr. Sully, and I'm inside the car on the speakerphone.
Right.
That's very, very unusual, and that's the
Okay.
kind of relationships that we've had
Right.
with our previous mayor and now the mayor now. Is that relationship that we could pick up the phone and just say, hey, this is a situation, how do we handle it? Like the pandemic, like the immigration, work very closely.
Right.
And so people don't realize that's so important for someone to see. They do not like chaos. They do not like fighting and, differences in opinion and visions. And so we're very well aligned. So it's a huge element of securing,
Right.
like Facebook that's coming in, Meta's
Right.
coming in. I took a trip to Taiwan, got a little criticized, but now that company, we talked to several companies, and one of them is at about 98% that they'll come in after that visit, and it'll be between 350 to 450 employees that'll come in. So you have to take those risks of
Right.
going out there and trying to get business for El Paso.
Right. So that's something you're doing.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's-
So I guess you're identifying businesses that you think would be a benefit to the region, and you give them a call and you go visit them. Is that how that works?
Well, actually, we have three pillars, and the fourth one I'll tell you a little bit about.
Yeah.
But you've got manufacturing. That's extremely, extremely important. The aerospace is very important.
Yes.
And healthcare. And so you're trying to build those. And manufacturing is probably, healthcare already exists, so it's a matter of enriching it and embracing it and making it bigger. We have some of the best doctors in the world at the UMC and also the private hospitals.
Right.
And we're having a cancer center that's coming in. And so
Wow.
people come through here and go to Phoenix, and they go to they go to Dallas, and they go get a lot of individuals that have money and others that we could help would do amazing by just coming here to El Paso. It's more
Right.
convenient. It's going to just to give you an idea, the Children's Hospital, we now 400 less families have to go outside of El Paso per year.
Yeah.
Think about it. You've got a child, and you have to take that child. You got to take the parent who's working, and you have to go to Phoenix or to Dallas or some other place. So this cancer center, thanks to our Representative Gonzalez, who worked really hard at that, to be able to bring it in partnership with Texas Tech. And so that's a big one, the healthcare. Aerospace, we've received a tremendous amount of money, and so we're really, being able to do that. Yesterday I was at the Global Summit by Borderplex, and that's what we talked about. It's an incredible, Borderplex just continues to bring amazing companies in here. John Barella, does a great job. He has a great team with Marcos and other people that do some Delgado, great things for us. Yeah. And if we develop the manufacturing component, that's going to be very strong for us. And so what do? You identify Taiwanese. I've been working with them since 2019. There's 3,500. People might not know that. 3,500 Taiwanese live in our community.
Wow. Okay.
And the business that they own in Juarez hire over 35,000 employees from their companies. And people don't know that. So we've developed a relationship with them.
Right. It's interesting to me because I didn't expect you to talk so much about international business.
Oh, that's the...
Yeah. And so I have to ask the question. There seems to be some uncertainty with tariffs and all of this that's happening. There's not a real understanding of what the world is going to look like even a few months from now. So how do you navigate through that?
Well, you have to wait through things. You can't continue to push in the wrong way and think it's going to work out. And the worst thing that has happened with the administration is to alienate our incredible allies. I mean, Mexico and Canada there's nowhere in the world do they have those allies.
Right.
And those allies have other allies, which is also very interesting, right? Because who has allies now in the world? I mean, you can't say China has their allies or Russia has their allies. We have allies that cared and loved us and feel good about us. So the biggest danger is, I think, Adam Smith and the invisible hand, that things have to work out to their best, because you can't continue to have tariffs and then we start seeing empty shelves, and then the people are going to come in, go to the groceries, and then for the first time you're going to go, oh my goodness, I don't have this or I don't have that. And then people finally realize how difficult it is, and then there's a revolt of saying that we can't do that, right? And then so the ratings go down, and so I think you can reach that.
Right.
The biggest problem I see is that before, Canada and Mexico didn't need options. They had us, right? So now whether you like it or not, and it's your friend. Your friend punches you in the stomach, right?
Okay.
And then you go, man, and it takes time, right? You're not going to forget that.
Right.
He's not going to be the same friend anymore. I don't care how good you are. I mean, I know we love to have that forgiveness, and it's important.
Right.
But you remember that he's no longer the friend you thought he was. So that means that Canada and Mexico start thinking, I can't trust that anymore.
Yeah.
And then they start going to Colombia and Brazil and see there's other alternatives to do that.
Right.
And one of the things, to me, the saddest things, because it used to be, the ugly American, and we sort of got rid of that. But Canada is now saying, we're not only blaming the government, we're blaming the people.
Yeah, wow.
And that never happened. Before, it was the government screwed up, and it was government to government, and you'd say, the prime minister said something. But now you're hearing Canadians say, we also have to blame the people because you voted for that. And it looks like you're still okay with it. You're still okay that we want sovereignty, and somebody says we're going to be the 51st state, and you're okay with that,
Right.
And so now it's a little different.
Yeah,
it might be more permanent.
Right. It's not my job on this program to give my opinion, but I can't help myself sometimes. And I've had the privilege in my lifetime to being in 40 countries. I've done a lot of traveling, seen a lot of things, met a lot of people. It's been one of the big privileges in my life. But what I would say is, yes, there is something about trust in that relationship. I do believe that people around the world who are our friends do not trust us as much as they did in the past. I understand some of the reasons why the administration is doing some of the things they're doing, but there is also value, even monetary value, in soft power.
Yeah,
yes.
Diplomacy. Too.
Right. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Can I say real quick, Andy?
Yes.
I want to thank you for being here in El Paso, because people that have traveled and have been around the world, that's not very common in El Paso. You know, even if you ask somebody if they've been away from El Paso, it was probably related to school.
Right.
And then they came back. But not a lot of people have actually lived where you've lived. And
right.
So you bring in a different perspective. And we really need that for people to see that as much as we're unique and we want to sort of preserve who we are,
right.
you also have to learn how to open your mind. And I hate to be critical, but Albuquerque decided they're going to be a little close-minded, and they didn't want certain businesses.
Oh, interesting.
And I spoke to someone yesterday from a journalist, and she agreed that there was a point where, no, we don't want this business. No, well, this business is not. And now you have high crime, and you have a totally. I mean, I used to work in New Mexico because of Cementos de Chihuahua, and we had a cement plant there. I was so envious. I mean, you see a shuttle every minute going to get a rental car. I mean, just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And now things are different. So when a city begins to sort of look inward too much and sort of become isolated, I feel that it never works. You have to learn to grow with the world, grow with the community, grow with the business. And you don't want someone like Meta thinking, you know, at one point El Paso wants to be happy and not be progressive. They don't want that.
Right.
Meta is going to be their biggest, it's going to be sort of a hyper leap of everything they've ever done in Meta throughout the world, from the architecture of their buildings to the technology, to the saving of, they were able to reduce the water usage so that they could come to El Paso.
Interesting.
It's going to be transformational. And why? Because of who we are, of how we are, how we're open, and we have to continue that. And we're going to have some great success by having the ability to attract companies, not for now. The United States used to be okay for the next 2 years. Like, and I think, I don't know if I told this story, that when they went to the maquiladora, they wanted 5 acres. That's it. Just give me 5 acres in a building.
Right.
And one time Japan comes in, and the executives tell me, we'd like to go to your kindergarten in Juarez, and we'd like to visit and see their curriculum. And I'm like blown away. Like,
interesting.
Like, what?
You don't want just 5 acres in a building.
Yeah, like, you want more? Like,
right.
And they said something very important. No one in the future is going to invest with the idea that the community cannot stay in stride with them in the technology, in where they're headed. They have to be a huge part of who we are all the way through. And if you don't do that, then we don't want to be here.
Right.
And I'll always remember that was a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Of that we have to offer education, making sure that the engineers have the level of technology. We became very, I'd like to say assertive, but I was very aggressive. I went to a university, and it was like 5,000, students, and it was a huge place. And it was embarrassing for them, but they said, what do you think about the universities here in Juarez? And I said, I wish I could put a stamp on a student on his head and say, rejected. Go back to the factory. I said, because you're giving us students that are not aligned with what I need. You're teaching them things irrelevant to what. And I told the students, I said, look, students, if you ever getting something that you understand is not going to help you, you have to tell them. I said, because I don't want to put that stamp on your head and send you back to the university with product defect. It didn't come through right. But that's how we begin to say we're no longer going to accept that we're going to invest all this money, infrastructure, because they do. Companies pay a lot of money for lights and, all these other things. And so you want to get the right education coming your way.
Right.
And I think that's where we are now. We want to promise Meta and all these other companies, Schneider Electric, that we're going to stay in stride with their expectations of technology, AI, everything that they need to want to stay here. You don't want a company. I'll give you an example. Cemex is the number one in the world. They were here 8 years and left. I don't see a park. Have you ever seen a park that says Cemex? Have you ever seen a statue? Anything. Right. 8 years. They took money out of our community and left.
Wow.
Why? Because they didn't think that we could keep up with what they wanted, which is not a good excuse. But I was always very upset at the fact that they never left a footprint. Number one in the world, okay? You can go to Vietnam, Korea, anywhere in the world, and you're going to see Cemex. And they left because we didn't make sense for their business.
Right.
And I always take that to heart. Any lesson I learn, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen again in our community, and then I'll push very hard towards that end.
Right. I love this conversation just because I think for a lot of listeners, for myself even, I'm going to be very basic. I see my property taxes and I'm frustrated, but to hear all of this effort that's going on really behind the scenes for us to be made aware of it is useful. We need to take a break. If you just joined us, we're with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego having a wide-ranging conversation about our community. This is your daily reminder that 915 Talk is a production of Desert Voice Media, and you can visit desertvoice.media to listen to this conversation or any of our previous Borderland-focused conversations. We're going to go into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
915 Talk is listener-supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. That's right. It's people just like you who make this program possible. Together with Desert Voice, you can learn how to better serve our neighbors and pray for our community. To become a Desert Voice Media partner, you can visit desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Take a look and join us today in reaching our Borderland for Christ.
Are you looking for a Bible teaching church on the west side of El Paso? This is Terry Gray, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Sun City, and speaker on the Summons broadcast heard each weekday at 5 p.m. here on this station. Calvary Chapel, Sun City is located at 960 West Borderland Road on the west side of El Paso. We hold services on Wednesday evenings at 7 and on Sunday mornings at 9 and 11. You can find out more information about us on the web at www.ccsuncity.org. The Lord bless you, my friends. Hey, KLP listeners, this is Pastor Terry Gray of Calvary Chapel, Sun City on El Paso's west side. I want to invite you to join me at a new time at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday right here on KELP. If you're driving home at 5 p.m. or doing work around the house or getting your evening started, I invite you to join me as we go through the Bible, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. There is nothing more valuable than the Word of God, so let's invest our time in learning more about it together each day. That's our Bible study program, Summons, each weekday at 5 p.m. right here on KELP.
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
And we're back. We're with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. For me, this is a fun conversation to learn about what's going on behind the scenes, learn about really how the decision makers in our community see things, the efforts you're making. Let me ask you this, because you're in a position where I don't want to say you see threats, you see storm clouds on the horizon that I don't see, that our other listeners don't see. what is maybe one or two of those that we might not be aware of yet that is concerning for you?
I think the most important that I see is that we don't continue to be united as a community, that every community needs to take care of themselves. I saw that in the pandemic. We had mandates, we had arguments, I had discussions with the governor back and forth. They sued us, we sued them. And then I said, you know what? We're the number one, the worst in the world right now. Let's just get together. Let's just fix this. Let's just take care of this. And that's what I said yesterday at the symposium. I said, everybody sitting there in the audience, I said, you might have this idea that somebody else is going to fix it for you. And we got to stop thinking like that. We have to say, what can I do? I mean, I hate to go all the way back to, J.F. Kennedy when he said, it's not what you can, what the country can do for you.
Right.
What is it that you can do for your country?
Right.
And I think if we have that mentality that El Paso, we have to take care of ourselves. And
Right.
we've been able to do it. We did it with the Walmart shooting. You can't imagine, a couple of days ago, I get this text that the shooter's now in custody in
Right.
Texas. And I felt like, oh, man, I was there 20 minutes when the shooting started at the hospital, went through the whole thing, created the healing garden. But I could see the community just working together.
Right.
And as soon as you make them aware, the community comes together. My biggest concern is that we become so concerned and so much uncertainty that we start being like other communities, that they just protest and they're upset and they're, instead of us saying, okay, what is it that I could do? What's my influence? Is it a neighborhood? Is it the uncle who can talk to the family about feeling better and
Right.
about getting together? I think there's going to be a pivotal change in politicians, that if you're not capable of uniting your community, it's going to make it very difficult from here on out. Because before they expected us to do policy and to have a lane, and like me, I love mental health, and so it comes a little bit natural for me to want to unite the community.
Right.
But I think we're now going to need leaders that are capable of bringing the community together and
Right.
moving them forward.
Right.
And so I think my concern is that we don't do that and we become like any other community.
Right.
I think the other one is, like I said, that we build a lot of relationships that have taken years and years. I know people in Mexico from the local level, the state level, to the governor, to, we get to know federal, and we build this relationship to a point where El Paso, if not for tariffs and for other situations, we are still positioned to be the gateway from Mexico to the entire United States. Nobody could do that.
Right.
We have all the, we have New Mexico port of entry.
Right.
We have the downtown port of entry that belongs to the city. We have the BOTA, which belongs to the federal government, and then we have the SLEDA, the America's port of entry, and then now we have, which is Tornillo, that we spend almost $80 million, and it became a white elephant. Three trucks were passing per month.
Interesting.
Okay, so now where can you have a situation and the answer has already been built? Isn't that incredible?
Right.
It would cost us $300 million in 4 or 5 years if we said, you know what, we need another port of entry.
Yeah.
And we have it.
Right.
That hasn't been used, with the highest technology, the highest land mass of any port in all of Mexico, United States. We have more land at Tornillo Bridge, which is the Guadalupe. We call it the Guadalupe a bridge also. But that is fascinating. We now have a system from New Mexico all the way to Tornillo, and we could bring in, and I'll give you an example. We're number 2 right now. Laredo's number 1 in the amount of traffic that comes and the value of what crosses. They reach 1,300 miles. Our reach is 500. So our trade zone of people coming through El Paso is 500 miles. Theirs is 1,300 miles, which goes all the way to Mexico City and all that. And so, can you imagine if we expanded our reach? We would immediately become the number one port of entry of anything coming from Mexico and from other countries that go to Mexico and come to us.
Right.
So we're positioned to be in an amazing. We received $900 million from GSA, the government, to modernize the port, the Bridge of the Americas, which we call BOTA. So the Bridge of the Americas is going to have 900. Never has that ever happened. 900 million, which means that for 3 years there's going to be under construction, and they've now said that there's not going to be any commercial traffic. So think about it. Now Tornillo and New Mexico can now work together. We can't afford not to.
Right.
So anyone coming from Mexico that wants to go west will come through through Santa Teresa. Anything coming east can now go through Tornillo.
Right.
So we're at the position. And so, like I said, I mean, I really believe, I have a master's in economics after, I don't know where I went from being a psychologist for so many years, but I have a master's in economics from the University of Notre Dame. And so that, we learned a lot about this, the invisible hand, because you cannot keep something unless you destroy it.
Right.
And so you cannot have tariffs and all that and then have empty shelves and think it's going to be okay. It'll reverse back. So I'm not as concerned about what the tariffs are going to do from an operational standpoint, as I said earlier, from a relationship standpoint, that people might want to go differently. They might want to go through Brazil and other countries to sell their products versus us.
Right.
And relationships can get, skewed a little bit between the presidents of Mexico and the president of the United States, or the minister, as you know, they've been pretty much. They're not going to get pushed around.
Right.
Both are very, very proud countries.
Yeah.
And you just can't decide you're going to throw mud in their face and that they're just going to clean up and continue going.
Right.
In the
Keep
same
smiling.
Direction. Keep going. So.
Right. I got you. Yeah. And we've been talking about a lot of high level issues. I like how you touched briefly on just what a normal listener can do, just those who, a citizen. What are some of the simple things that listeners can do to move us in the right direction as a community?
I think you have to listen more to who you're electing, to be more critical. Sometimes people, it's sort of sad that name recognition is the number one reason you get elected. The second one is if you're the first one on the ballot. Can you imagine that? You're already 15% ahead because you're on the top of your name's on the top of the ballot. And think about it. I mean, think about how we worry about taxes, we worry about all these things, and then at the end of the day, first name.
You go to vote, and
then who's that guy? Oh, okay, let's I've heard his name somewhere,
right,
on Tex-Mex or something.
Right.
and I vote for him. You can't do that anymore, if ever. And we have one of the lowest voting in the country. There's times there's 6% of the entire voting population. 6%.
Yeah.
And you see people in Mexico standing up for, 8 hours to go vote because they feel it's so important.
Right.
And we have such a privilege to vote.
Yeah.
And we have 7%. And I think that's the first step. The next one is to, we have commissioner's court every single Monday. And we don't have people, that court should be completely full.
Just
and
listening.
You should be in public comment and say, I don't like that. This is what I'd like to do different. This is what, and we have to have that pressure. Calling on the phone and getting upset at the elected official is not as powerful as being at commissioner's court. There's plenty of seating, so to go there or get online, because every Monday we have a link that you go in. And then you could call in and public comment. We can't interact with you in public comment, but
Right.
what you can do on one of the items, if you sign up, then we can interact with you. Let's say that we're one of the bonds. We're going to, the Parks and Recreation, and it's item number 7B. You can actually sign up for 7B, and then there is interaction between you and the commissioners and myself.
Right.
If you just go to public comment, I cannot interact with you.
Right.
I just have to listen. And then, of course, we take notes and follow up, but there's no interaction. You can't be asking questions. So just that kind of getting more. When I ran for office, the 90% of my family had no understanding of politics, zero understanding of
Interesting,
politics.
yeah.
And now they're all excited because they went to my campaigns, they went to my debates, they went to the speak. They got excited. They started voting.
Yeah.
I focused like 80% of my first campaign on the non-voter.
Right.
They give you a list and they give you who votes, right? And so I'd go to house number 1, the big voter. They even have a title, AAA voter. And the next guy, the next 25, 30 houses don't vote.
Right.
So I stop, knock on the door, and they tell me, "Wow, someone finally stopped." And I tell him, he goes, "Well, I don't understand. How come nobody had ever stopped?" And I said, because you don't vote." And he goes,
Interesting.
"Well, how do you want me to vote? You don't talk to me."
Interesting.
And my the strategic political strategist in my campaign, "No, don't do that. Just go to the voter. Go to the voter." I said, "Heck no." So all my campaign, we'd knock on the door
Right.
of the non-voters, and they were like shocked.
Interesting.
So it was a catch-22. They
That's
thought we
funny.
were dismissing them.
That's funny.
and we thought they were dismissing us, and they thought we were dismissing them.
Right.
So it was very interesting.
That is
dynamics.
interesting. I love this whole part of the conversation because really a big reason why we have this program 915 Talk is because I began to realize that particularly in the church community, which is most of our listening audience, folks knew everything about national politics and nothing about the local situation. And so I thought, well, let's just start talking about it. And so that's why we have this program, so that we can be talking about what's happening locally, and not just in a setting where we get quick sound bites, but where we can really drill into some of these issues.
No, and I enjoy this opportunity to sort of really. I'll give you an example. Before the pandemic, nobody knew what a county judge did.
Right.
They were like, "Who is this guy?" You know, because we focus rural areas. They thought that, but once there's any type of emergency, the county judge becomes the head political leader, like it did in the pandemic. I could override any of the mayors.
Right.
If he said no masking, I could override it. You
Right.
know? And so people started realizing what in other places like San Antonio, for example, was an iconic county judge, Nelson Wolf. He was mayor twice, state legislator, state senator, and then he became a county judge for almost 20 years and just retired 2 years ago. And nobody realized how important that county judge was to be able to make things move forward. So now, it's like those things, I don't want you to understand the political world by accident.
Right.
Do it by design, by understanding, by knowing who we are, what we vote on, challenging the things that you don't feel good about.
Right.
And if you do that, I think we'll grow and develop much more in our community.
I love it. And we only have a couple minutes left, so just quickly, what is one thing you learned during the pandemic that you'll be able to use if there's another emergency?
Well, we did it really quickly with the measles.
Okay.
We really quickly, before we would have been stunned because we learned about masking. We learned the importance. I don't know if our community realizes before the pandemic, we had a capacity of the flu every single year, up to capacity. I'm talking 875 individuals that were there. When we masked, that number went down to 52. So during the pandemic, we attacked the influenza as well by wearing masks. Also, we learned that you quickly look at the most vulnerable. We were giving vaccines to everybody, and the most vulnerable were over the age of 60 with underlying conditions that were dying on us that we didn't know. So as soon as I got the information on the measles, I started talking about if you feel sick, don't go to large crowds.
Right.
All the things that we learned. Large crowds are the most difficult situation.
Right.
Traveling into areas. For example, if we know that the measles are happening in that part of Texas, before we didn't care. You'd go there. Right now you say, well, why would you go there if you know that's where there's a big start? If you remember, it was called the travel. The majority was through travel. We were one of the last in Texas to start, but we started going to California and so we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Unity, relationship with Mexico was very important. We didn't have one at the health level.
Right.
And so we weren't connecting, and now we can quickly connect at the health level and so forth. So the measles really brought to life of how much we had learned and the relationships that we need to keep going. And also the outdoors.
Yeah.
They will never take the outdoors. I don't care which virus, that saved us. So be outdoors. That's why the bond passed so quickly on recreation, because people remembered that when you couldn't go anywhere, you could go outdoors. You could go walking. You could go. So we were putting a lot of energy in places to go, but don't do that just because you have a virus. Being outside is very healthy.
Right.
We want to create a culture of health. The first line of defense of anything that happens to you is how healthy you are.
Right.
First line of defense. Before the mask, before vaccines, that's your first line of defense.
Love it. There are so many other things that I wanted to talk about. We've totally run out of time. Really appreciate your time today. If you just joined us for the tail end of this conversation, we've been with El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego. Really appreciate you coming in. And as we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbor, and give God all the glory.
All the glory.
This has been 915 Talk. You have been listening to 915 Talk, a production of Desert Voice Media. In order to listen to previous editions of 915 Talk, just visit desertvoice.media. Let's learn together to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.